Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I always like to start with a hello song when I'm working with my students, so I think we're going to start with a hello song today, and we're going to use a song from the Beatles, Hello Goodbye. You know that one? So we're gonna do that. And I have a couple of friends in the audience, and I think they know that song, so they can sing with me as well. Very nice. You guys sounded great. So I have had a lifelong journey through music, and I was asked to present on the power of music to move us and heal us. And there are so many ways that I could have thought to present this, but I thought I'm just going to go through some points in my life where music was powerful for me and talk about music therapy as a powerful healing tool, and also give you some ideas of things that you guys can do in your own personal lives to use music to inspire you, to promote wellness and health for yourselves. So to begin with, I was thinking about this question, what was the earliest memory of music that I had? And I thought, music has always been such a part of my life. It was hard to remember what the first moment was, but I'm gonna ask you a question. Think back to the first musical instrument that you ever actually played. I know some of you are music majors, so we have a lot of musicians here. If you're not a musician, it may be a little harder, but try to think back to your earliest memory of playing a musical instrument. Everybody have one in your mind? Okay. So I think I was about this big when I first got my first real instrument. Before this, I had a toy piano that I got for Christmas, and it was one of those little white grand pianos, and I loved it. And I played by ear, so I started playing it, and at about this age, I think, I got my next instrument, which was a little upgrade. It looked like this. I don't know if any of you here remember, some of you might be of age to remember these types of chord organs, but it was about this big. And it plugged into the wall, and it used air to power it. And so I started playing songs on that. But the tone of it wasn't really what I was looking for, but it was what we had, so I used that. And I continued to play. And I noticed that whenever I was worried about something in my little young life, that's when I would go the most to the organ and play. One of the issues that I had was that I was really scared of meeting new people, kind of had a little bit of social anxiety, and so I played a lot of organ. When I started school, I'd come home and play, and that would be relaxing for me. So then, once I got to about age 7, then I really started getting involved with lots of different instruments and different activities. So first it was the upright Steinway that we got, and I started piano lessons. Then in 5th grade, I started playing the flute and joined the band. Then in 9th grade, I joined the choir, probably 6th grade, actually. It didn't look like that. That's more of a high school choir, like I'm remembering. I was a madrigal singer. I did musical theater. I switched to bassoon because we didn't have any bassoons in our band, and they needed one, and it's got a similar fingering to flute, so I played bassoon. And of course, constantly through my entire childhood was the record player. And then the boombox, which I got, I want to say it was for my 18th birthday. I got a boombox, and that was huge. It had a tape player and a radio, and the radio was a big deal back then. You know, that was the soundtrack of your life. Everywhere you went, you had the radio on, and the pop music was just fantastic because it was now what we call classic rock and classic R&B, and there was disco, and there was just, you know, everything imaginable. So it was great. So I was really involved in all of this music, and I thought, well, I'm going to be a music major. I'm going to go and study voice performance and piano. And I don't think I had a really clear vision of what I would do with it. I just knew that I loved it, and it was such an important part of my life. And it really facilitated for me having a social life. That's where I met my friends. All of my friends were instrument players. They were singers. They were in musical theater. And for me, with that social shyness that I had, that just facilitated everything for me in terms of having a social life. So I think I was drawn to being a music major for that reason, and just because it felt like everything I did had music interwoven into it. So then there was an event, a series of really unusual events that sort of co-occurred at the same time. So the summer before I went to college, we had a family friend, a little friend, who was 8 years old, who was diagnosed with leukemia. And at that time, there were not a lot of treatments that worked for kids with leukemia, so he was undergoing an experimental chemotherapy treatment at the time. He and I had been close before that, and we always used to sing together. He had a great voice. He had a really deep voice for a little kid, and he loved to sing the song "One in a Million." Maybe some of you remember that. It was by Lou Rawls, and there was another guy who also sang it. So I left. I went to college. My little friend did not do well. They started noticing that he was having memory problems in school. He wouldn't be able to do his homework. He would say, "I can't remember how to add." Then he started not being able to read. Then he started not being able to speak. By the time I came home for my first college break, which I think was Thanksgiving, he could no longer talk. So it was a very fast decline. And what they found was that the experimental chemotherapy that they gave him actually sort of erased the outer layer of his frontal cortex and sort of all the way around his brain. So he really lost functioning very quickly. And by the time I came home, we couldn't have a conversation. And if someone talked to him, he would usually cry because he couldn't talk back. So I was there, I think it was Thanksgiving, and I thought, well, I'll turn the radio on, he likes music. So the song "One in a Million" came on, and I hadn't heard him say any words at all since I'd been there. So the song comes on, and I was singing. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was in the kitchen or something, and I was singing the verse, and he was in there sitting. And the chorus part came, and the words had just said, "To love you to me is to live." And I was singing along with that, and he just belts out from nowhere, "The one in a million." And I was like, we all just were like, oh my gosh, what is happening? He can sing, he can still sing. And from then on, it was like everything I wanted to say to him, I would sing a question. And he would try to answer. He would be able to repeat after me. He couldn't necessarily generate his own answer, but he was able to repeat, and he was able to engage. He was able to actually be in a social interaction, contribute to the interaction, and he loved it. And it was a real blessing, I think, for us and for, the whole family to have that occur. So I thought to myself, this is magic. Music is magic. What is going on here that enables him to do this? So I return to school up at Syracuse, and I'm sitting in the registrar's office waiting to talk about my credits or something like that. And I'm looking at stuff on the table that's in there, as offices have, and there's a little brochure on careers in music. So I'm thumbing through that, and I see something called music therapy. And I was like, oh, music therapy, I've never heard of it. What's that? So I read about it, they had like 2 paragraphs on it, and I said, this is amazing. So I was still thinking, what is music therapy? I had to call the American Music Therapy Association to find out what is music therapy. There was no internet back then. There was no way to instantly research or connect with anybody or look up anything. So I actually had to get on a phone, which I didn't have. I think I borrowed somebody's phone because we didn't have phones in our rooms back then. And I called them, and they said, well, there's a training program at Catholic University. Why don't you come take a look? And I did, and the rest was history. I sort of dove into the field of music therapy, not realizing that it wasn't even really a field yet. It had just started in the 1950s, but I didn't know that at the time. And now there is a website. So if you are interested in learning more about music therapy, you can go and check that out. There's lots of information for you. I think we have some people here who are interested in pursuing music therapy as a career, and I encourage you to do that. It's a fantastic, amazing experience. So like I said, the history of music therapy really started after World War I and II, when there were a lot of VA hospitals, and the veterans needed something to lift their spirits, and the VA hospitals started to hire musicians to come in and entertain. And then they realized that there was a lot more than entertainment going on. The veterans would engage with the musicians. There were a lot of musicians in the Army and as vets, and they would begin to play, and as they played and sang, they got better. But there were also some difficulties for the musicians working with the vets, and it was realized that there needed to be more training for these musicians who were going in and working with these people. So in 1950, the American Music Therapy Association was founded. It was a different name back then, but it started in 1950, and when I started studying, it was 1981, so it was only a 31-year-old field at that time. But so the definition of music therapy, everyone always wants to know, what is music therapy? The preferred definition is this one. It's kind of a dry definition. I don't think it conveys the spirit of the work, but it is a good working definition. So it is a clinical and evidence-based practice of and use of music interventions, which could be singing, playing, listening, creating, moving, and all types of receptive music practices as well, songwriting, to accomplish individualized goals, and they could be social, emotional, cognitive, learning, rehabilitative, physical, and others to, within a therapeutic relationship, by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. So that's the official definition. But when you're in it, it feels much more dynamic. I don't think that definition can really say the activity that goes along with it. So music therapy can be designed, the interventions can be designed to do all of these things and other things as well. We're going to go over some of the current research and uses that are trending right now in music brain research. So just to reiterate, those are some of the things that music therapy is. It takes a lot of clinical training. You have 1,200 hours of clinical practice under supervision before you can take your board certification exam to be a music therapist. So some of the things that have happened that have kind of been in the news, maybe that you've heard about, music therapists worked with Congresswoman Gabby Giffords after she had her brain injury from a gunshot wound, and she was able to regain her speech through the use of some neurologic music therapy techniques. Specifically, it was melodic intonation therapy that she started with, and then she developed into using some other techniques as well with the guidance of her music therapist at the hospital where she worked, where the therapists work, and where Gabby was residing at the time. It can be used to engage older people with dementia and bring them back memories, reduces pain, reduces asthma episodes. It helps people communicate. They use it in the NICU with infants and with their parents to provide some stimulation for sleeping and for waking and for eating. It works to help promote gait training in people with Parkinson's and stroke patients. So those are just a few of the things that you may have heard about. And music therapists serve everybody across the life spectrum, across the lifespan. If you're interested in reading some articles about it, these are 2 journals that the organization publishes, and there's a lot of interesting information in there. There's also right now just a lot of information online that you can access easily regarding music therapy and anything. So if you're interested in music therapy and depression or music therapy and mood modification, you can type that in on Google and you'll see a lot of good information that you can access. If you're interested in a bibliography of research, you can leave me your email address at the end, and I will be happy to send you a big bibliography that you can access if you're interested in that. So here's some current trends in music therapy research and work. Right now, there is a lot of interest in polyvagal theory. Has anybody ever heard of polyvagal theory? One person? Yeah. So it's new. It's extremely new. And what it regards is the concept of, I'm looking for my slide notes, because I want to get this right. I'm not an expert on polyvagal theory. I just want to make sure I'm saying the right things. Here we go. So there's a researcher named Stephen Porges. He's from the University of Chicago, and he's developed the polyvagal theory, which basically says that instead of just having the response of fight, flight, or freeze when our bodies are under stress, that there is a third response instead of, or an additional response when we're under stress, and that additional response is social interaction. And he postulates that as our mammalian brain developed, we developed the need to show our emotions on our faces and communicate our emotions and communicate important information to our families or our community for safety reasons, so for survival. Because as we got more complex brains, we had more information we needed to give, and that this was a development of our nervous system to promote our survival skills. So the idea is, we have something called the vagus nerve. I would love to have like a model of a brain. I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a TED Talk right now by a woman who wrote the book called My Stroke of Insight, and she actually has an actual human brain that she pulls out of a box and shows everybody. I don't have that, but if you can imagine, inside of each of us from the bottom of our brain is the vagus nerve, and it actually travels the length of our torso, and it is connected to every organ, every major organ in our body. And that is the nerve that this researcher says developed as our ability to speak developed over time. And so the polyvagal nerve is, the polyvagal nerve is all of those different branches. And one of the branches goes directly to our throat and our voice for speech. And another of the branches goes to our face for visual expression. And then it also goes to our heart, to our intestines, to our kidneys, to all those other important functions. So his theory says that our emotions are linked to all the rest of our autonomic system functions now. And so when we activate our voice or our emotions through our face, we can affect wellness in other parts of our body because these things are all connected. So, given that, I'll give you like a simpler chart. So his theory says that in addition to mobilization when we're stressed, which is like fight or flight, right? You might respond by wanting to do something, run away, or defend against the danger. Freezing, like a scared rabbit in your headlights, they freeze and hope you don't see them. He says in addition to those survival instincts and mechanisms, we also have the social engagement piece, and that is the need to warn others, to get your family safe, to get them to a safe place, and to communicate that. So he actually is very supportive of music therapy as a field, and he said the reason is because the music affects not just helping us breathe in order to regulate our heart and things like that, but that there's also the therapist relationship that actually facilitates the social interaction, which helps us to reset our stress level throughout our body. So his little chart shows the idea that the therapist provides social engagement with a person. The client feels a sense of safety because socially interacting helps us to know that we either are safe or how we can get safe. And then that has the outcome of improvements in self-regulation, social behavior, communication skills, quality of life. The same thing occurs with melody, and this we know to be true from research that has shown that when melodies are present for people, when they're singing, that it helps them to engage socially and engage in breathing and all of the mechanisms that are required for singing, activate our lowering of our cortisol levels, and also has an outcome of improved self-regulation, social behavior, et cetera. So they've seen that through various studies. So his interest is in having those two combined, and that's where he says the power of music therapy is. So that's really interesting. That's recent research, so I don't know where it will go, but it makes sense to me just in terms of my own feelings of safety and how music helps me feel safer in any situation. And I know a lot of my students and even colleagues feel that way as well. So there's also a lot of evidence for music therapy and cancer treatment, that it supports a lot of beneficial outcomes for people who are undergoing chemotherapy or surgeries or T-cell transplants. There was a review of 52 clinical trials, and there were 3,731 patients involved in all of those studies, and there was a statistically significant benefit that was shown for those who had music in the environment or engaged in music. They had lowered anxiety, fatigue, pain, and increased quality of life, and that's a pretty big deal, because it's not easy to have a great quality of life when you're undergoing chemotherapy. It just doesn't make you feel that great. So I think that's a nice piece of evidence. In stem cell transplant patients, they showed improved coping and social integration and interaction, better sleeping, fewer mood issues. And it's really great working with kids who are pediatric oncology patients, because it just helps them to engage in something that's fun, that really gets their mind off it. They can, oftentimes they'll get up and move and dance when they would normally just not want to do much, but the music can really engage them in something that's positive and normalizing for them. Okay, so there's a big branch of music therapy that's called neurologic music therapy. It is a specialized training that you can get through the Neurological Music Therapy Institute. I did receive that training myself. I went down to Houston and I trained with the music therapists that worked with Gabby Giffords and a lot of other leaders in the field. And the way that it works is that they did repeated clinical trials, numerous numbers, to devise specific music therapy methods that showed specific responses in different types of patients. So they developed a series of 18 music therapy techniques, and when a patient presents with a certain problem, you can prescribe that technique for that patient. And I don't use it all the time because sometimes you don't know what the specific problem is. I work in a school, and I work with students that have lots of different difficulties, and sometimes we just don't know what is going on neurologically, so we can't necessarily identify a specific technique. But it is a fantastic means of using some specific interactions and interventions that can help people. Some of the things that I have used and that some other people have used is music as a mnemonic device. We all know that music helps us remember things sometimes. Like, I remember the 50 States song. I'm thinking about Schoolhouse Rock. Anybody remember that from your childhood? And I think they brought it back because they're still using it. So, using a song to remember something is, has always been done ever since people could sing and speak. But now there is this research to show in clinical trials that it actually does work. It's a brain function technique. So I recently wrote this song interactively with an occupational therapist. I have a student who just got back from, she actually had a cancer surgery herself, and she has to relearn a few things. And so her occupational therapist said, I'm trying to get her to wash her hands in a regulated way so that she doesn't keep running the water for, 10 minutes, because she just likes the feel of the water. When we're in a time constraint at school, we got to wash our hands and get back to class. So could you write a hand washing song? And she wants to have it to the tune of Toy Story. You Got a Friend in Me. And I was like, yes, we can do that. So here's what we did. I'm not going to do all the verses because there's a lot of steps to hand washing. Who knew? How many? But I worked with the OT to specifically time out. I would say, how long do you want her to be rubbing on the backs of her hands? And so we kind of sung through it and we timed it so that it will actually work for her. And I think it's going well so far. So I'm just going to sing you 2 little verses. Now it's time to wash our hands. Now it's time to wash our hands. We'll be squeaky clean with good hygiene, 'cause now we're gonna wash our hands. Yes, we are. Now we're gonna wash our hands. So first we turn the water on. Run the water good and strong. Get your hands all wet as they get. Then turn the water off and sing along. Oh yeah, turn the water off and sing along. So there's a lot more about pumping the soap 2 times and all that stuff. It's like a 4-page song, it turned out. Because there's a lot of steps in there. And, with the concern about germs and stuff lately, the OT wanted to be really certain that her hands were going to get clean. So, but it sounds like it's going well. So that worked out great. So that's a great example of a mnemonic device to help someone remember what to do. Another thing is using melodic intonation therapy. I mentioned this before, to enhance speech with aphasic kids or adults. I worked with a patient who was the victim of a gunshot wound to the head, and he still had so much cognition because it didn't affect his frontal cortex, but it affected sort of the speech centers and a lot of the motor centers because it was further back in his head. And it damaged mostly the left side because that's where the bullet went in. So he and I worked together using melodic intonation therapy to get his speech back online. And we used a lot of other neurologic techniques too. He was playing drum set so that he could get his right side going again, because that was motivating for him. He didn't want to go to PT. He didn't want to go to speech therapy because it was boring and it was sad and it was hard work and it made him realize all the things he had lost. But he would come to music and I would give him a drum lesson and he'd be using his foot, crossing over to do the snare drum. Oh no, it's this one. I forgot. And then crossing over to do the hi-hat. And then he even learned how to do some simple rolls in there, and he could keep a steady beat. And as he did that, his gross motor skills improved so much, and his physical therapist was thrilled, and she started coming to the sessions, and we had that kind of interaction. So it really made a big difference for him in that way. Mood and psychological functioning, and the use of rhythm cueing to assist in gait training. You might see this actually in a rehabilitation center, or maybe some of you even had the opportunity to avail yourself of this, where they may use a metronome, or they may use a drum, or they may use, if it's a music therapist, they may use strumming on a guitar to give the pulse of the walking, and the person can regulate much more. The before and after videos are amazing when you see the difference Like they'll say, walk across the room, and the person is very dysregulated. And then the very next moment, they add the beat, and the person standing up straight, marching to the beat. It's really incredible how music helps us. And maybe you know that if you're ever in marching band. Some of you, how many people are in marching band? Yeah. Oh, not so many, okay. But there's something about, marching to that music that really does get you going. Okay, so music and learning, I'm involved with this every day at the school where I work, at Kennedy Krieger High School. It's my home base at Kennedy Krieger Institute. The nice thing about music is that it activates the left and the right brain at the same time. And if you are a musician, how many people in here would say, yes, I'm a musician? Okay, great. So, yes. So inside of your brain, if we could take a brain scan of it, we would probably see that the corpus callosum, which is the part that connects your two halves, is really big and really full of nerve fibers that have been developed through all your years of practice and study, because you've been doing physical tasks, you've been doing reading tasks, you've been using vocal tasks, you have been counting, you've engaged your whole body and your entire brain every time that you engage in a music task like that, and you've been doing it for years. So you're building up those cross connections, and that really strengthens your brain. It strengthens it for the future. It kind of gives you a little bit of immunity against, like if you were to have some type of a brain issue, it would make your brain stronger, so the likelihood of it recovering is faster. So music is really, really good for your brain, for learning and everything else. These are some of the things that I help students with at Kennedy Krieger High School. We also do a musical theater program, and that's amazing with the students. One of my students recently, he has a difficult time with having a conversation, but he's very, very brilliant musically. He and I have incredible musical interactions and musical conversations. So recently he asked me to sing a song with him, and I didn't know the song, and he said, well, it's from My Musical Monsters, and I didn't know what that was, but it's a video game where you can create music, and the monsters are the little sounds and the singers. Do you know about this video game? It's fantastic, but anyway, he really wanted me to hear it. Well, we looked it up, and I was finally able to find it, and he sang it. When he sang it for me, and then we sang it together, it just really occurred to me how profound the words of this song from this game were, and why he so much wanted me to sing it with him. So thinking about that social interaction piece that we talked about with the polyvagal theory, I think it kind of relates to this. So I just want to show you, and I hope I get it right because I haven't practiced this too much, but it was a profound piece of music to me. So I'll try it. You can say that we are monsters, but I don't really care. Just elementary monsters. It's all up in the air. But now that you have landed, together we will share the carefree life of monsters. 'Cause here we walk on air, see me in the sky, but yet you don't know how to fly. But I don't wanna be here alone. Take a chance, just take a chance, and take a leap of faith with me. Can't you feel it? It's in the air. Can't you feel it? It's in the air. And there was just something very powerful about singing that song with him. And he just had this look after we did it. His face was just like that is something that he was waiting for someone to do with him. So it was really a profound moment. And then he had a great day after that in school. So that was also really good.